Alright guys, Kane here from Garage 11. On this little video we've got a Banshee engine that we're pulling apart. We're actually doing a bigger restoration on this bike. It's pretty cool. Banshees were very sort of 90s. They were brutal things. So this one's going to be pretty cool. There's a fairly lot of good stuff going on this bike. So we got it as a complete bike, but yeah, it sort of needed a lot of love. So we're going to get into the engine, start by pulling it apart. We did a compression test on it because it was super hard to start, but it would run when it was hot. So we found that one of the cylinders was pretty low on compression, so we made the call to pop it out, pull it all apart. We've got a 400cc top end going on it, a couple of electrons. So it should be a pretty angry thing when we're done. As you can see, we're sort of popping the heads off there, having a look. The head gasket was a little hard to get off, so sort of cut that off there. Little boost bottle up the top there. There's a couple of these little carbies. We're just going to pull the slides out. We've got new cases and everything for this bike. So what we're going to be using of what we're pulling apart now is pretty minimal outside of the gearbox and the crank. As you can see, it's got fairly standard engine. Not a lot going on. Let's pull the manifolds off here, get the reed blocks out of it. These things sound super cool when they're running. Like I know, some people have opinions on quads and whatnot, but when you fire one of these things up, it sounds angry. So hopefully we can make this one sound even angrier. As you can see, it's had a lot of sort of neglect over the years by the looks of it. The cases were pretty obviously damaged and repaired. So we've managed to get some new old stock cases for it, which is good. Cerakoted them black. Customer wants the whole thing black, which will look really nice with a lot of titanium. Here we are just pulling the pistons out of it. A little bit unusual for us. There's more than one, but that's all right. We're smart enough to deal with two. So we'll pull the side covers off. Everything's just tied. As you can see, a lot of these bikes, when they're all together, yeah, cool, they look great. But when you start really looking at them in a finer detail, they do start to really break down. And you can see how tired it's starting to look. So we're going to pull the drive sprocket off it. We've got the flywheel and all the electric side coming apart at the moment. So it's super similar when you look at them to maybe a motocross bike or a smaller small engine. It's not a great deal difference. It's wider. And obviously, like I said, twin cylinder. So it's the basic principles of pulling it apart and what it looks like are very similar. Obviously, the cases don't split apart traditionally like we would think in the motorcycling world. Well, the off-road motorcycling world, sorry. They actually separate horizontally, not vertically, which is actually not a bad thing. It's somewhat a lot easier to deal with. So here we go. There's some cool little things how they've done routing, wiring, stuff like that through cases and stuff. Because obviously it's packaged a lot different, totally different to a motorcycle. So here we go. We've got the clutch side coming apart. Once again, like I said, it all looked very similar. Like it's not totally dramatically different than what you would usually expect. So a little electric water pump here. I'm going to pull that off. I think we're replacing, like I said, a lot of this sort of stuff, or we're going to restore a lot of it. We're going to obviously try and find some more attractive covers or clean these ones right up, because the brief on this bike is to keep it OEM but race, so really like low key, high end, which is really cool. We really like that because it's easy to go super Larry, but it's really hard to do it subtle and well. So we've got a bit of a challenge ahead of us. So as you can see, clutch cover side coming apart here. It's same, but like I said, just applied differently. So a lot of your basic principles are the same. As you can see, we've got the clutch crank gear coming off there. Pull the clutch basket apart, which all motorcycle looking stuff. Not a lot of difference here. So the cases, as you can see, look pretty tight. Like I said, we managed to get some brand new ones for this, which I was pretty surprised. A lot of spare parts are still available for these bikes, even though they've been out of service or out of production for a few years now. I just remember seeing these bikes on like Krusty 2, Abbott jumping these things and doing stupid stuff through a Macca's car park. So they are a cool thing. I just remember them being brutal though, like super brutal when you rode them, and bitey, even less forgiving than a motorcycle. And maybe that's the romance. They don't suffer Suffer falls very well. Here we go, we've got the clutch off now. Still going to pull the boss out and the basket off. Everything looked pretty good in there. This bike had a little bit of a tumultuous history with its previous owner. So we're sort of just really double checking, triple checking everything as we're going. We know the guys that were working on the bike previously, so absolutely no disrespect for them. I know they had their sort of hands tied on a few things. We got a pretty good with our customer here who got the bike. He's really committed to making it nice. As you can see, all the shifter setup there, very similar. Just going to go through, pull it off. We're bagging everything. As we do with all our engines, we bag, tag everything, and it all goes its own little individual sealed tub, because it's super easy for the parts fairies to get involved when you're pulling this sort of stuff apart and things to just go missing. It happens to us, 100% it does. But the more you can try and negate that and the more organised you can be, the better off we are. Here we are swinging off the impact screwdriver. Just breaking up all the Loctite. You can use a little bit of heat. Always be careful of your surroundings and what sort of heat you're using. Flames are great and quick, but they can also do a lot of damage everywhere. Heat guns are probably the best when we're talking internal required heat for breaking Loctite and stuff like that. As we said, these cases split horizontally, so we're just going to pull the case bolts apart at the moment, and then we'll be able to crack it open and see what's inside. Going to get this crank rebuilt, balanced. There you go. There is the big case repair at the bottom left-hand corner there. That was one of the things we're like, what do we do? You know, this was one of those engines where the more we thought about it, the more we're like, yep, it's got to come apart. It's got to be done, and if we can get cases and we can make this thing look 100%, then that's exactly what we're going to do. So as you can see, popping it all apart here. It has pins that go in from the underneath and the top, so it's sort of fairly well held together. Little soft hammer just to crack it all apart with a lot of sealant in here, so it was really quite held together. As you can see, like I said, horizontally, pop the crank out, super easy. There's a few little pins and stuff in there that you've got to be a little bit careful about when you're pulling it apart. Same with the gearbox, always be mindful. Gearbox looked really good. It wasn't too, some of these bikes got a lot of abuse. 80s and 90s, or late 80s and 90s and 2000s, they were, so sometimes you sort of find a lot of stuff. Big gearbox though, they are strong. Anything Yamaha make generally is really good quality, and these things were no exception. Here we're going to drive the dowel pins out, the selector fork pins, sorry. Get the shift drum out, and then we pretty much would be coming to an end of pulling this little thing apart. Like I said, it was pretty straightforward, very motorcycle-ish, just a few little odd bits and pieces, very off-road motorcycle-ish. New cases, gearbox we're going to pull apart, check all that. Like I said, crank rebuilt. You can see how tight it looks looking at it now individually. So there you go. All right, guys, that was the Banshee engine coming apart. Stay tuned. Don't forget to subscribe, like our stuff, follow what we got going on. We've got some cool stuff happening. Thank you.